Almost exactly 1 year ago, I reviewed the original 9Barista, the Mark I, and found myself pretty impressed. Because inside this thermos-sized, seemingly glorified mocha pot sits a ton of engineering, designed to meet the classic standards for a true espresso, meaning 9 bars of pressure and 200-degree water. And since I found that original unit so impressive, when they offered to send over their newest version, the Mark II, I of course had to say yes. And even though some things haven't changed, and there will definitely be some overlap in what I have to say in terms of the overview, performance, and downsides, there has been some upgrades and updates worth covering. But first, in the spirit of full disclosure, as I mentioned before, the folks over at 9Barista sent me the Mark II for review, but not before agreeing to my terms of no access to the draft or the contents of this review prior to full public release. But with all that out of the way, we're going to dive right into it after a quick word from this video's sponsor. When it comes to brewing the best coffee, quality ingredients matter. And purely by the numbers, water makes up to 98% of what goes in your cup, and it's absolutely vital to the long-term reliability of your equipment. So after months of testing and trials, I've landed on third wave water formulas for all of my coffee preparation. Not only is it designed to not produce scale or cause corrosion, but there's an option for every palate. Third wave water offers a wide variety of mineral blends designed to get the most out of your favorite roast level or brew type. So take control of arguably one of the most important variables for brewing quality coffee today, and head over to thirdwavewater.com/Sprometheus or use code Sprometheus at checkout to gain 10% off your first purchase. Thanks to Third Wave Water for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back into it. Even though the 9Barista essentially resembles some kind of elongated mocha pot and does have some things in common, it is worth doing a quick overview for those who maybe aren't familiar. So much like the mocha pot, the 9Barista brews from the bottom up. So to start, you'll fill the base with filtered room temperature water. Prep 18 to 20 grams of ground coffee in its 53mm basket, and tamp with the included tamper. Then you'll attach the base and portafilter to the main body, which is where all the magic happens. Place it on the heat plate and start warming it up. As the water in the bottom heats and pressurizes, reaching 354 degrees, it's forced through a 9-bar spring-loaded valve that allows water to then move through a coiled heat exchanger that drops the water temperature to around 212 degrees, and then finally through the fin exchanger, which drops it down to the final brew temperature and more reasonable 199 degrees. And as the water and pressure presses upwards into the coffee puck, you'll get a familiar but also very uniquely beautiful extraction view. At just a glance, the Mark I and Mark II 9Baristas really don't look all that different, but there are some upgrades and updates done both inside and out that are worth discussing, so let's look at what's new. The original Mark I was built from a partially machined brass casting. The Mark II body, though, is now fully machined in eco-brass, a higher performance alternative to the regular brass due to its resistance to corrosion and stress cracking, and of course stainless steel, both of which resulting in a 30% higher strength and wear resistance. The original also had a silicone thermal break that has since been replaced with a steatite ceramic, which increases the heat resistance by an impressive 500%. They've also replaced the plastic steam chimney with an anodized aluminum, increasing its heat resistance by 250%. And finally, they've added a millimeter to the boiler O-ring, which doesn't sound like a whole lot in theory, but in practice it does increase the durability and lifespan. And beyond the standard Mark II, they also now have a Mark II Pro, which has a handful of upgrades aimed more so at consistent extractions. They've replaced the silicone basket cap with a precision-drilled stainless steel cap, which not only increases extraction consistency, but also removes some plastic from the water path. Also, they've added the IMS Precision basket that is perforated for a more uniform extraction, plus a bottomless, or I guess in this case you should say topless portafilter that gives you a better view of the extraction and potential issues. And finally, they swapped out the walnut handle for anodized aluminum, increasing its heat resistance and wear. Though keep in mind, a lot of these parts that are on the Pro version are also available separately and backwards compatible across all the other versions, which is a nice perk, especially if you're an early adopter or if you don't want to fork out the $775 for the Mark II Pro all at once. Now let's talk performance and usability. And I hate to always keep comparing it to a mocha pot because what it does produce is true espresso, but the actual workflow is very similar. You'll start by weighing, grinding, and prepping your coffee puck. In this case, unlike the mocha pot, you will need to grind finer and tamp like espresso. Then fill the base with room temperature filtered water. Then attach both to the body cylinder, making sure each are secured well to avoid leaking under pressure. Then place it onto your heating surface and wait for the magic to happen. In terms of the finer points or recommendations here, you can basically go as hot or as low as you want depending on how quickly you want your espresso to brew, because in the end, it all reaches the same temperatures regardless of where you set it. After a few minutes, you'll hear water inside begin to boil, and the chimney will consistently pump out steam as the pressure builds. Not long after, the 9-bar switch opens, and coffee breaks the surface, which is then my cue to drop the heat slightly and track the yield before pouring into a cup. I do find it gets kind of bubbly and somewhat bitter if left to push out all the water and trapped air. Of course, though, this is more so kind of a general outline for brewing as opposed to some kind of hard and fast rule, because oftentimes other people's equipment is just a bit different. From the stove to the grinder, there is some leeway there. But once you get the hang of it, I did find that the 9Barista, regardless of the model you have, whether it be the original Mark 1, Mark 2, or Mark 2 Pro, it does produce really consistent, properly extracted, and tasty espresso over and over and over again. And there's really not much out there that can compete in its price range or above it with just that consistent quality. So it is a pretty impressive piece of kit. The 9Barista, regardless of its quality of espresso or ease of use, it definitely still has its quirks and downsides. And since my previous review, or the original review of the Mark 1, these haven't shifted even a single millimeter. So for one, there's a lack of control. The machine's parameters are hard set to 9 bars and 199-degree water, and that's it. All you can do is change the grind. So for those who really like to explore different roast levels and varieties and things like that, who generally like to brew lighter roasts hotter and darker roasts cooler, this machine might not be for you. Though I do think some may argue this is part of the 9Barista's appeal, since high levels of control can lead to too many choices and kind of a choice paralysis with so many variables, and never really being fully content with their outcomes. Also, much like your standard-sized mocha pots, the 9Barista produces a double shot, which is generally considered a single serving. And pulling a second shot is a bit of a process, because you need to cool it down, depressurize it, and start that whole process all over again. So for a single drink or a single person, the 9Barista I would consider as a time saver over most boiler-based espresso machines. But when it comes to that second shot, it isn't nearly as convenient. Through the last couple of years, I've found myself more and more drawn to machines that rely on engineering over electronics, and I think the 9Barista is an excellent example. Its engineering appears complex on the outside, but it's simply explained and plainly effective at achieving a consistent product time after time. Granted, the price point, especially as you move into the Mark II units, did jump up quite a bit from the original 500. But they are all worth their weight in terms of materials, engineering, and espresso quality. And in a world increasingly full of plastic and products that feel disposable, the 9Barista looks and feels like it'll outlive us all. Of course, though, it's definitely not the type of coffee machine that everyone would be interested in, but for those looking for simplicity or build quality, a small footprint, being travel-friendly, and consistent espresso, it still remains hard to beat. But on that note, I think it's time I start wrapping this one up, and as always, pass the conversation on to you. So what are your thoughts on the 9Barista? And is it a machine you're interested in? And do you think the overall simplicity and reliability of the 9Barista's engineering would be worth letting go of some of the control from those more modern electronic options? Drop your answers to those questions and any others you may have in the comment section down below. And as always, I'll see y'all in the next video. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that little bell button for notifications when new videos drop. Check out my Instagram at Sprometheus for more coffee content. Help support the channel by considering becoming a member for exclusive access. And as always, stay caffeinated. Ponyboy